So what do I think were the top 10 films that were not nominated for the Best Picture Oscar? Hey guys, it's Brian. Welcome to the awards contender. This is going to be a fun one. What are some truly landmark, exceptional films that somehow, for some reason, did not get a Best Picture Oscar nomination? So my one rule here is that the movie had to have at least one Oscar nomination. It couldn't be something that was just shut out entirely, because very soon I'm making a top 10 video, the best movies of all time that didn't get a single Oscar nomination. So that video is coming. For this video, we are diving into some wonderful films that for whatever reason didn't get into Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Of course, for each title, I will give you the movie that did get into the category I would easily take out. So let's start with number 10, The Truman Show.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
I've tasted other cocos. This is the best.
Now this title is in my top 10 favorites of all time. It's in my top 5. I frickin' adore The Truman Show from 1998, directed by Peter Weir and starring Jim Carrey. This was Carrey's remarkable dramatic breakthrough as an actor. After an insane run of successful comedies there for a few years, he comes along with The Truman Show, which was also a huge box office hit and was something entirely different for Carrey. This film is so moving, so compelling all the way through as this man in his early 30s starts to realize something is wrong about his life. Oh, his entire life is being broadcast to the world as a television show 24/7. It's a movie concept that might not have worked in the wrong hands, with the wrong director, wrong actor, but Peter Weir and Jim Carrey were the perfect pairing at the perfect time for that movie, and they really did create a masterpiece that got into the Oscars, got into Best Director for Peter Weir, got into Screenplay, got into Supporting Actor for Ed Harris, but Jim Carrey missed Best Actor, which has always bugged me. I think he deserved to get in. And for whatever reason, the film did not get into Best Picture. And I've never understood that. Was it the Jim Carrey of it all? Like, we can't possibly put a Jim Carrey movie into Best Picture at the Oscars. Was it that? Was it the film's early release in the year? It came out in June of '98. I've always wondered if The Truman Show had opened like Christmas Day. I feel like it would have done better at the Oscars. I feel like Carrey would have gotten into actor, and I do feel it would have gotten into picture, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen, even though the Academy embraced the movie somewhat. It missed picture, and that has never felt right to me, especially when you consider the movie that won Best Picture for 1998. Like, who thinks that's a better movie than The Truman Show? Not me. So yeah, in Best Picture 98, I would take out the winner, Shakespeare in Love, and replace it with The Truman Show. Number 9, The Lion King.
You run along now and have fun. And remember, it's our little secret.
So something that's always confused me a little bit about The Lion King is how it didn't get into Best Picture at the Oscars when it was such a box office and audience sensation. Everybody loved that film. It came out when I was 9 years old, and that movie was my jam in the summer of 1994. I mean, I still think to this day that's one of the best, most important Disney animated feature films of all time. And this is 3 years after Beauty and the Beast becomes the first animated feature to get a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars. And so you look at the rest of the 90s and like, yeah, Aladdin, it's probably too silly, too comedic to get into picture. But I feel like, especially before Best Picture goes from 5 to 10 nominees in 2009, and we get Up, we get Toy Story 3, like once it's 10 nominees, right? There should have been one more animated feature film after Beauty and the Beast to get into picture at the Oscars in that field of 5, and the movie that should have done it was The Lion King. I think that's a masterpiece of storytelling that endures, man. You can watch that at any age, at any time, and the power of The Lion King when it comes to the animation, the music, the emotion, like Mufasa's death scene, that is one of the most devastating moments in all of Disney animation history, and it was the biggest hits at the box office for '94, right? And it did well with critics, audiences ate it up, they loved it. And so you get to that year's Oscar ceremony and you look at the Best Picture lineup, and it's like, yeah, there was room there for The Lion King. I know some of you might take out Forrest Gump, that year's Best Picture winner. I like Forrest Gump more than others. That gets to stay. But obviously, like Pulp Fiction stays, The Shawshank Redemption stays. But then you get to Quiz Show and Four Weddings and a Funeral. And those movies are good, they're solid. But did they need to get into Best Picture over The Lion King? I don't know. I think The Lion King should have taken one of those two slots. So I would remove Quiz Show. It can get into director, it can get into the acting categories. Quiz Show doesn't have to be in picture. I would take out Quiz Show there and replace it with The Lion King. Number 8, The Dark Knight.
And why do you want to kill me? I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you?
This was one of my most disappointed Oscar nomination mornings ever. I really felt like in my heart, The Dark Knight was going to get into picture and director at the Oscars, even though it was a comic book movie, a Batman movie. It was just such a sensation with audiences, with critics. I mean, that was one of the most important films of 2008. It was my choice for the best film of the year. It's so much more than a comic book movie. There is so much happening in that. And the performances, the direction, the cinematography, everything is pitch perfect in The Dark Knight. And I'm like, okay, Miss Director, but it'll get into picture, right? It's like, it's gotta get into picture. But no, they went with The Reader. The Reader. I was like, what? Come on! Like, The Reader doesn't need to get into picture director. It can get into acting for Kate Winslet. Fine, but like, who watches The Reader today and says, oh, thank God it got into Best Picture at the Oscars? Like The Dark Knight, that was one of the 5 best movies of 2008, and it should have gotten into that category. Even if Nolan had to miss director, I could have lived with that if the movie had gotten into picture. That has never felt right to me. It's weird. It's very weird because I just think that movie is incredible. I mean, just the scenes with Heath Ledger. Just his moments make that one of the great films of 2008. And then you have the rest of the movie. It's all fantastic. It is not even a question for me. In Best Picture at the Oscars that year, I would take out The Reader in a heartbeat and replace it with The Dark Knight. Number 7, an Alfred Hitchcock tie. Rear Window and Psycho.
What are you running away from?
Why do you ask that?
So I couldn't decide between Rear Window or Psycho being in this video. They both got into Best Director for Hitchcock. They both missed Best Picture. And they're my 2 favorite Hitchcock movies. So I thought, let's just make it a tie. Let's have it be both here. Rear Window and Psycho both deserved to get into Best Picture. I think those movies are some of the best made in that era. The 50s, early 60s, Hitchcock was firing on all cylinders there. Between, I would say, Strangers on a Train, 1951, and The Birds, 1963, I basically love everything he made, and these are the 2 best. Anyone who's never seen a Hitchcock movie, I always tell them watch Rear Window first and then watch Psycho. And you will get a sense of who Hitchcock was as an artist, a director, a storyteller. And what bugs me about them both missing Best Picture is that the Academy kind of embraced both of them. They both got multiple nominations. Again, Hitchcock got into director. So, like, why couldn't they get into picture? Because they're genre films, because they have suspense and horror and things. I guess that was the problem. But you look at what got into Best Picture at the Oscars for 1954 and 1960, and in both cases, there is an easy choice to remove. And I don't think anyone would miss them. For 1954, I would put in Rear Window in Best Picture and take out 3 coins in the fountain. You know, like, we don't need that movie in Best Picture. And for 1960, I would put in Psycho and take out The Alamo. The Alamo? Like, no, that doesn't need to be in picture either. Number 6, The Matrix.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere.
So I have talked about this on the channel before, about how 1999 is my favorite year in the movies. Like, I think that is a pretty remarkable year of cinema. But you look at the Oscars for 99, and it doesn't really reflect how great that year was. If someone was not around in 99 and they were looking at Oscar history and they looked at the Best Picture nominees for 99, they wouldn't know. They would not know how special that year at the movies was. But what really irks me about Best Picture 99 is how The Matrix couldn't break in there, even though it got 4 technical nominations and won. All 4, man. Film editing, sound effects editing, and visual effects. So they clearly watched the movie, really loved it. Like, The Matrix in film editing beat out 4 Best Picture nominees to win that. So I'm like, if there had just been a little bit more chutzpah, from Academy members, they had an opportunity to do something really cool in Best Picture. I mean, they did put in The Sixth Sense, which is great. That's kind of a genre film, a ghost story. But we also should have nominated one of the great films of 1999, The Matrix. And I do think there are 2 titles you could easily remove. The Green Mile, to an extent. I like that movie. I watch it every few years. It's pretty good. So I guess I would leave that, even though I don't think it needs to be in Best Picture at the Oscars. But very quickly, I've been wanting to do this for over 25 years. I would take out the Cider House Rules in Best Picture and replace it with The Matrix. Wouldn't that look better, Best Picture at the Oscars that year, if we didn't have Cider House Rules there and The Matrix was in that category instead? I think so. Number 5, 2001, A Space Odyssey.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid, Dave.
Now here's a movie you might assume got a Best Picture nomination. Sometimes I think it did, but it didn't. 2001, A Space Odyssey, it got into a bunch of categories. It won Best Visual Effects, but it did not get a Best Picture nomination, shockingly enough. Like, you think back on that era for Stanley Kubrick, and the Academy really embraced him. Did you know he got 3 Oscar nominations for every movie he made 4 films in a row? Dr. Strangelove, 1964, 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968, A Clockwork Orange, 1971, and Barry Lyndon, 1975. He got 3 nominations for each movie. And the only time he ever won was for 2001, A Space Odyssey in visual effects, which is such a weird Oscar achievement for the late, great Stanley Kubrick. Like, he probably should have won director, right, at some point. And by the mid-1960s, he was producing his movies, so when a film got into picture, he was part of that nomination, like as one of the producers. But 2001, it didn't get into picture. even though that's one of the most important movies ever made, certainly of the 1960s. And it's like, okay, the Academy gave it director, screenplay, art direction nominations, but not picture. And you look at the category like, okay, well, maybe it was just a phenomenal year and somehow 2001 just couldn't break in. Like, what won Best Picture at the Oscars for 1968? Oliver won. And I'm like, I saw that one time. It was okay, you know. It did not have any lasting impact on me. I don't think that film should have gotten into Best Picture. It should not have taken the prize. So, as is the case with a few slots in this video, like just because the movie won Best Picture does not mean you're off limits. For me to take it out of the category completely, 2001: A Space Odyssey from beginning to end is an astonishing cinematic achievement that I have seen on the big screen 3 times now, and it is always a marvel to behold. It's one of the great movies ever made. I know at the time it got kind of a cold reception from some, right? From critics, audiences, and things. It's a movie that has built its reputation throughout the decades. I get that. But even back then, it should have at least gotten into picture. It didn't have to win, but it should have gotten into the category. And yeah, I would take out that year's winner, Oliver, sorry, and replace it with 2001: A Space Odyssey. Number 4, Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back.
He told me you killed him.
No, I am your father.
Okay, so technically this is a sequel, right? And most sequels to films, unless you're called The Godfather, don't get into the Oscars in picture director and things. And so I get that. It's like the second installment. It's not going to be as popular with the Academy as the first movie was, I guess. But I just think The Empire Strikes Back builds on what made Star Wars: A New Hope so special and just multiplies greatness over and over again through that storytelling, the visual effects, the cinematography, the editing, that Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader story. I think The Empire Strikes Back is one of the great films of the entire decade, of the 80s. And I don't know about you, I feel like if Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, 1977, gets into Best Picture and Best Director at the Oscars, The Empire Strikes Back should have gotten into picture as well. I mean, it could have missed director, sure, but like, it deserved to get into picture, I think. You know, you have the occasional big blockbuster get into Best Picture at the Oscars all throughout the 80s. Why not The Empire Strikes Back? Is The Empire Strikes Back not as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark, as E.T.? Those 2 films get into picture the next 2 years. Why can't Empire Strikes Back break in as well? You might say it's just too competitive, Brian. Best Picture that year was way too competitive. And yes, 4 of those 5 nominations are ironclad. Like, I wouldn't touch them. They're perfect. But there's a 5th movie I think you could take out and nobody would miss it. Tess by Roman Polanski. I think Tess, which I saw once, it was fine. I haven't really thought about it since. I think you could easily, for Best Picture at the Oscars 1980, take out Tess and replace it with The Empire Strikes Back, and that would be one of the all-timer Best Picture Oscar nominations. Number 3, Back to the Future.
Doc!
Marty, you made it!
Yeah!
Welcome to my latest experiment. This is a big one, the one I've been waiting for all my life.
This is one of my favorite films of all time. It's not in my top 10, it's definitely in my second 10. It's in the top 20. This is a perfect movie. I very much enjoy parts 2 and 3. I watch those all the time too. They're a lot of fun. But there is just something about the first Back to the Future movie that works so beautifully every time you watch it. They got that thing right, man. From the screenplay, which I know is studied in screenwriting classes all around the world, right? I mean, that is a screenplay to study, like how to structure a film. I am so happy at least the Academy nominated the script. And it got some technical nominations. It did okay, but Back to the Future 1985, one of the biggest hits of that year. Critics adored it. I mean, that was a sensation that year. And it's so much more than just like a fun action movie romp of the summer. Like Back to the Future has so much going on in that narrative. I think because it's comedic in tone, like the humor of Back to the Future, that's why it didn't get into picture at the Oscars. I mean, I get it. I kind of get it with Back to the Future. Why it got into screenplay, but not necessarily director and picture. But just because it's funny all the way through doesn't mean it shouldn't get into picture. Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was a big box office smash of 1981, as I mentioned before, got into Best Picture. So it's like, if we can nominate Raiders, why can't we nominate Back to the Future in picture? That would have been amazing. Now, this one's a little tricky. Like, what do we take out of picture for 85? I looked at the category. All 5 titles are pretty strong, but Prizzi's Honor was the one I landed on. Like, I've seen that film. It's very good. Wonderful performances. You know, John Huston getting into director, that can stay. But like, did it have to get into Best Picture? Like, would anyone miss that now? Would people say now, man, how did Prizzi's Honor not get into Best Picture at the Oscars? It's a shame. I don't think anyone would care. Even though that is a very good film, and it's not a bad nomination by any means, I think we can take out Prizzi's Honor in picture that year and replace it with Back to the Future. Number 2, Singin' in the Rain.
We're missing every other word. You've got to talk into the mic.
Well, I can't make love to a bush.
All right.
One of the most baffling Oscar omissions of the 50s, I would say, like of that era, is Singin' in the Rain, like not getting into more categories. It got into supporting actress for Jean Hagen. That is a great Oscar nomination. I adore that. And it got into Best Music Scoring. So it got 2 Oscar nominations. It wasn't left out in the cold. And I get it. I know. Singin' in the Rain in 1952 was not the movie it is to everybody today. For whatever reason, Singin' in the Rain was not a big box office hit in 1952. It should have been. It's maybe the greatest musical movie ever made. And it's like, people were just like thumbing their nose at that film, like, oh, we don't have to bother going to the theater this week. Singin' in the Rain is not worth our time. Like, what? I've never understood why people didn't love that movie back then. I mean, this was an era where we had movie musicals all the time. And it's like, that one didn't work for audiences, for some critics and things. That just has never felt right to me. Because when I eventually watched it for the first time, I was in my early 20s, I could not believe my eyes. That is a perfect movie. It is so much fun. The songs are amazing. That color cinematography, the performances, it's so funny. Like, kind of how I talked about with Back to the Future, was it that it was overly funny? It's like comedy can really scare off Academy members, right? Was it just that it was kind of a box office flop? Like, not enough people went to see it, so it doesn't get into picture, director, other categories at the Oscars? It's just very strange for a movie that strong. For what most people consider today to be one of the greatest films of all time, it's like, what? Only 2 Oscar nominations? And it's supporting actress and music scoring and nothing else? Like, Singin' in the Rain should have gotten into 5, 6, 7 or more categories, I think easily. It should have gotten into Best Picture. What really just like drives me crazy about this omission for Singin' in the Rain is that you look at what won Best Picture that year. The Greatest Show on Earth, Cecil B. DeMille. That movie is one of the biggest slogs of anything that has won the Best Picture Oscar. I watched it recently. I did a year of James Stewart films in chronological order, and I got to The Greatest Show on Earth, and I was like, ooh, how's this gonna go? It didn't go well at all, guys. Like, it was hard to get to the end of that movie. It's got a couple moments that work okay, but it just goes on and on and on, and there are long stretches where nothing is happening, where you are just watching a circus act unfold. And you're like, this is a movie. Like, you have to have more happening in the story with the characters. And it won Best Picture at the Oscars, a category that doesn't even have Singin' in the Rain, one of the most famous films of all time. So that one's weird, guys. That one's really weird. I think most Academy members, if they could go back in time, they would have made a lot of changes, I would say, but especially for 1952. In Best Picture that year, I would take out the winner, The Greatest Show on Earth, and replace it with Singin' in the Rain. And finally, that takes me to my number one choice. What do I think is the best movie ever made that didn't get a Best Picture Oscar nomination? Again, I had to go with the film that got at least one Oscar nom. Like, it couldn't be something that got just completely wiped out. I'm gonna do another video, great films that didn't get any nominations, and there are some doozies in that one. I mean, I've got like 5 or 6 in that. You will not believe your eyes and ears. You're like, that didn't get any Oscar nominations? It got nothing? Yeah, get ready for that. But I decided for this number one choice, what is a great, great movie that didn't get a Best Picture Oscar nomination that absolutely should have? I am going with my second favorite film of all time. It got into Best Director, one of my favorite Oscar nominations ever. That Best Director Oscar nomination for the late, great David Lynch. My number one choice is Moleholland Drive.
Before I kill you.
So kind of like how I talked about with Academy members going back in time, changing things, changing 1952 Best Picture, the winner, getting Singin' in the Rain in there. I think a lot of people today in the Academy, if they could go back to 2001, pick some different Best Picture contenders, winners, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's the year of A Beautiful Mind, winning picture and director, and supporting actress, and adapted screenplay, and yeah, it's fine. I guess it's fine. You know, most of the Best Picture Oscar nominees for 2001 are pretty good. You have The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, you have Moulin Rouge, you have In the Bedroom, and you have Gosford Park. Those are 4 great films. I wouldn't touch those. But as I've been doing throughout this entire video, like, the Best Picture winner is not off limits. And so when you look at 2001, the best in cinema that year, obviously there's some great movies like Memento. I really love Vanilla Sky by Cameron Crowe. I think that's a really good film. But easily, the best film of 2001 is David Lynch's Moleholland Drive, a movie that completely blew my 16-year-old mind and has not stopped haunting my dreams and nightmares ever since. That is such a singular, original vision from David Lynch that still amazes me. It's starting as like a pilot for a potential TV series on ABC, and that it turned into this otherworldly masterpiece that works in every way, on every level. I know it's confusing. Those final 30-40 minutes are bizarre. And some people, audience members, some Academy members probably, right? They couldn't go along with it. I understand why Moleholland Drive only got the 1 Oscar nomination for Lynch and nothing else. It would have surprised me if Moleholland Drive had gotten like 12 Oscar nominations. I would have been like, what? You know, I would have been thrilled, but I don't think anyone was expecting that. At least it got into director. At least it got that. It should have also gotten into actress for Naomi Watts. I still think that is the most egregious acting Oscar snub of the entire decade. And when you're talking about the best films ever made that should have gotten into picture, for me, I'm the one making this video. I know all of you will have different ideas at what should be the number one choice. There might be some more obvious picks, I don't know. But when I started putting this list together for myself, I was like, Sunset Boulevard, my favorite film ever, got into Picture Director, did very well, at least in its number of nominations. But then my second favorite film ever, Moleholland Drive, only got the one. And it should have also gotten into Picture. And when you look at what won, A Beautiful Mind, perfectly fine film. I saw it the once and, it's good. It's not a terrible Best Picture winner. We've had far worse. But I think when you compare A Beautiful Mind to Moleholland Drive, there is no question what is the better movie. I would, in a millisecond, for Best Picture at the Oscars 2001, take out the winner, A Beautiful Mind, and replace it with David Lynch's masterpiece, Moleholland Drive. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below what are some other great films you think should have been nominated for the Best Picture Oscar, and I'll see you next time at the awards contender.